This particular strike against General Kirillov is very significant in the wake of him being charged for international war crimes by Ukraine, where inevitably Ukraine knew that the likelihood of them seeking justice was slim to none. However, this particular action, this assassination, escalates issues considerably. What we can probably determine from how this attack was undertaken was that a period of surveillance, covert surveillance, and reconnaissance was established to determine General Kirillov's pattern of life, as we would call it. And a pattern of life will be how we would typically carry out our everyday week or weekend. And we are all creatures of routine, in so much as we would generally leave our homes to go to work at about the same time every morning. We will go to quite often the same coffee shops. We will follow the same route more often than not, particularly if we don't feel that we're at risk or a threat. And we will go for recreation, restaurants, gym, all these sort of things, which make us incredibly easy to plan against if we have a threat that wishes to intend us harm. Now, this pattern of life that's been undertaken evidently established that General Kirillov was leaving his home at roughly a particular time. And from what we understand, obviously this was during what one would deem the working week. His driver came to collect him, and outside his property, what was could only be determined a very inert, everyday item, which was an electric scooter. However, when we consider many of these new electric scooters have considerable amounts of real estate where, for example, a lithium battery would be held, that allows for a considerable amount of explosives to also be concealed, possibly replacing that lithium battery. So to the human eye, you would only see a scooter that was tethered to a lamppost. But the reality for an assassin is that this particular electric scooter was packed with explosives that could be detonated the moment Kirillov left his apartment. What evidently seems to have taken place was Kirillov was leaving his house. The individual, the assassin, triggered the explosion or detonated that explosion, probably remotely using a cell phone or a remote detonator. Could be done through radio frequency, but more often than not, we've seen an increasing number of these detonations triggered by cell phone devices. But I would say it would be safe to say that whoever triggered or detonated that explosive was having a line of sight on Kirillov when he left the building to ensure that that assassination was going to be successful. And this could only be carried out by someone who was highly experienced in these areas. Kirillov is one of the most senior military officers in Russia to have been targeted within Russia, which in itself is a very serious statement being made by the party or parties behind it. We understand that Zelensky has denied Ukraine involvement in this. However, I don't think it takes an awful lot to join the dots to determine who would have the best motive or the greatest motive to carry out an attack like this. Kirillov was also responsible for the nuclear weapons division within the military. He would have been a close ally to Putin, and therefore targeting someone who is instrumental and particularly at the arrowhead of nuclear weapons and a close ally to Putin, again in itself makes a significant statement in terms of what the threat wants Putin and his cohorts to believe in terms of their ability to get as close as they possibly can to them. The implications of this particular assassination will inevitably trigger retribution by Russia. Russia will, not that it isn't already, increase and expand its clandestine and covert actions against Ukraine state and also against key people within the Ukraine military and Ukraine government. This is just a mere escalation, which in itself has huge implications. So we need to anticipate, as do Ukraine, that significant actions could take place. And if there is deemed to be any DNA or fingerprint by foreign agencies or by foreign nations in assisting or corroborating or collaborating in this particular action, this assassination, they need to consider that they will be on the target list also. There are many speculations which can inevitably come out in the wake of this kind of assassination. It can be seen as either a foreign power, either directly associated or associated in some shape or form, or this could be an internal dispute that has been resolved. I think in this instance, my gut feeling is this will have nothing to do with any internal machinations or disputes that are undertaken or being undertaken right now in Russia. And this is very much a foreign hostile state that has been involved. I think it's highly unlikely we're going to see an immediate retaliation by Russia against and in retribution to this assassination. But what I think Ukraine has to consider is that not all prominent and high-profile Ukrainians are located in Ukraine, and that they are located in other parts of the world. And I wouldn't put it past the military clandestine units such as GRU within Russia to potentially retaliate against those that may feel safe in other nations or other countries around the world to show that their reach is considerable and that few Ukrainians that could be associated to this would be safe.
Я его знала только по СМИ. А что он проживал у нас в подъезде, я, конечно, не знала. А по телевидению-то мы его видели. Ну, машину видели, знали его машину. А так подъехали на самокате. А самокатов как раз там стоят, там стоянка этих самокатов, как раз возле этого подъезда. И часто, мы ж не знаем, это там вот здесь, а так здесь все открыто. Подъезжайте, кто хотите, заходите, кто хотите.
Главное там остаться. Есть. Ну что, есть желание, нет? Ну что стоит? Нет. Есть время. И на среду планируется выезд специалистов ОСХО, поэтому Россия никакого препятствия не делает.
Geological and biological protection.
И я, Шульгин Александр Васильевич.
And myself, Alexander Shulgin.
Организация Украины имеет конкретное поручение по созданию так называемой грязной бомбы. Для этого на Украине имеется соответствующая производственная база и научный потенциал. Предупреждаем, что в случае провокации с использованием токсичных химикатов